Former American ambassador to Israel, Tom Nides, thanks so much for joining us here. October 7th coming up. What feelings does that date evoke in your mind?
First of all, thank you for having me. I was in Abu Dhabi of all places. I was invited by Miriam Adelson to come to Abu Dhabi for, of all things, the a basketball game. The NBA was having their game there, and the Mavericks, which she then went on to purchase, and the Minnesota Timberwolves. When I'm from Minnesota, so she invited me to come. We're sitting in Abu Dhabi at a restaurant with the basketball players and my friend Yusuf Alataba and Miriam and her team. And I remember this as it's yesterday. We were sitting there and we were toasting the success of the Abraham Accords. And I raised my glass to both Yusuf Al-Attab, Ambassador Al-Attab, because he and the Trump guys were obviously critically important in this, and obviously to Miriam, although she and I have different political focuses. And literally, 9 hours. Ted Deutsch was sitting to my right, I remember, and 9 hours later, we were all sitting around talking about how we're to leave Abu Dhabi, get back to the United States, and then getting back to Israel. So I just remember it was a moment of unbelievable hope, right? Unbelievable hope that we were on this journey to expand the Abraham Accords. And literally just hours later, we were talking about the security of the state of Israel. So that's what comes back to me in very clear and very crystallized in my head.
This is a different country, Israel, a different country, and obviously a different region in many ways since October 7th. You've stayed involved with the region. I mean, what's kind of your point of view on how things stand at the moment, the hopes, as you mentioned, the challenges? Where in your mind is the Middle East heading in a post-October 7th environment?
Well, first of all, the atrocities that have happened on October 7th, Israel probably will never totally heal from. They're obviously still in the midst of a war. What Hamas did was beyond anyone's imagination the worst deaths since the Holocaust for Jews. So I think we're all scarred from that. That said, the war must end. We need to get our hostages home. We need to begin rebuilding Gaza. We need to get, Israel has probably never been safer within its own borders, right? Between Hezbollah and the Houthis and Syria, obviously Lebanon, and obviously Iran. But we shouldn't be under any illusions here, folks. We've got a huge, huge problem outside our borders. And my hope is that as strong as the Abraham Accords have been, in which, quite frankly, I'm really pleased that Morocco and Bahrain and the Emirates have stayed close to Israel. That I wouldn't take that for granted. This war needs to end, and we need to move on. We need to rebuild. Obviously, we need to heal, and obviously in the moments of the high holidays, we need to focus on that. But we have a lot of work to do.
You're out of diplomacy, at least on an official level, and out of politics, so I feel more comfortable asking you this question. The Biden admin took a lot of heat from Israeli officials for its posture toward Israel to some extent in terms of backdoor weapons bans and criticism, things of that nature. Donald Trump, though he has shown at times his exasperation with Prime Minister Netanyahu and the situation in Gaza, kind of gets a more of a pass on that front, certainly from Israeli officials, oftentimes from Israelis themselves and in the media. Do you see a difference in the way the presidents have handled the situation, and are they being treated fairly in that regard?
Let me make very clear, and I couldn't be clearer. I said this at the Jeffries conference just a week ago in Tel Aviv. I give a lot of support to Donald Trump in his support for the state of Israel. I have no problem with that. But make no mistake, I was standing on the tarmac at Ben Gurion Airport with Joe Biden when he looked into the camera and said the following words: "You do not need to be a Jew to be a Zionist." Okay, this guy, time in and time out, supported the state of Israel, not only for the support of the military activities. Remember, the first attack from Iran, it was Joe Biden who basically provided the ships in the Mediterranean, sent Carrillo there to make sure that Israel was protected. It was Joe Biden who showed up 6 days after October 7th and embraced Bibi Netanyahu on the tarmac of Ben Gurion Airport. The idea that Joe Biden didn't fully and completely support the state of Israel is, by the way, at his political peril. at his political peril. There were plenty of people in this administration or the Biden administration who were trying to push the president to basically, I wouldn't say, quote, abandon Israel, but certainly soften his position. And he refused to do it. So this false narrative that Joe Biden was supportive of Israel is just not fundamentally true. The facts don't provide it. So I can at the same time be more than happy to support Donald Trump's move. I was the first guy who supported the attack on Fordo for Iran. I would have rather done it through the JCPOA, but since that wasn't going to happen, I totally support it. Obviously, the brilliance of the activities they did in Lebanon with Hezbollah, I'm totally supportive. But make no mistake, Joe Biden had Israel's back, set it up in ways to basically give the opportunity for Bibi to do what he did vis-a-vis the Iranians.
We have seen Democratic support for Israel in terms of Congress, in terms of the polling has been consistent for months now. Democratic support is cratering rather, and it's always been a priority, at least for most Israeli groups, not necessarily the government, for most groups to maintain that level of bipartisan support. Is there an opportunity to get back there, or is it going to be lost for a generation based on these consistent numbers that we're seeing?
I think you're asking the wrong. I think you're asking the wrong question. I think the question is American Zionism. Forget Democrat and Republicans. Okay, American support for Israel among Americans. I don't want to divide this country between Democrats and Republicans in the state of Israel. It breaks my heart. This is not a partisan issue. Okay. My friend Matt Brooks, who runs the Republican Jewish community, who's a friend of mine, okay? We've had this conversation. Israel cannot become a partisan issue. The reality is that support for the state of Israel, sadly, today is been hurt, and we need to understand that as a Zionist, as someone who cares deeply about the state of Israel. This isn't a Democratic issue or a Republican issue. There are plenty of Republicans on the far right that are really concerned with what's going on in Israel, as well as the far left. That my view is very simple. As someone who cares deeply about the state of Israel, about the Jewish people, about the importance of a democratic Jewish state, we have to make sure that American Zionism is strong and aggressive in the support of the state of Israel. So I don't want to buy into Democrat Republicans. We got to make sure this is a bipartisan issue, and we need to support that.
Have you stayed in touch with Israeli officials in the government since you left your post?
I have.
Can you give us any? I mean, I would love for you to name names, but I know you probably won't. Can you give us any insight?
I have plenty of friends in the Israeli government. Again, I don't necessarily agree with some of their positions, but I care deeply about the security of the state of Israel. And I care deeply about the security of both the Israelis and Arabs who live in Israel. And I care deeply about ending this war. And I talk to the hostage families probably every other day. I was in Israel last week. I just chaired the Mead conference, or co-chaired the Mead conference on Thursday, where many of the Israeli officials came, as well as some of the Arab officials as well, to talk about these Middle East issues. I'm kind of become I never wanted to be a professional Jew, but the reality is I am a pure. I love the state of Israel. I love being a liberal Jewish kid, which I am from Minnesota. I care deeply about security. So yeah, do I stay in touch all the time? Those people who are in the current administration, those who want to be in the government, those who are in the coalition. So a day does not go by I do not have a conversation with someone from Israel.
The situation in Gaza in terms of reaching a ceasefire, getting the hostages out, and removing Hamas from power, that last part seems to be the biggest hang-up. And everybody's calling for the war to end and the recognition of a Palestinian state, and all these things are happening. Still no one can pinpoint how to get Hamas out of power. Go ahead, because you had an initial thought. Go ahead.
Yeah, listen, I think again, I've said this publicly, so I'm not saying something I haven't already said. I think we're looking at this the wrong way. I fundamentally believe we've won the war, okay? The definition of success does not need to be the elimination of of Hamas, if that is this definition of success, we're going to have a very, very difficult time trying to succeed. The definition of success should be, and is already, that October 7th will never happen again. Okay? That is what definition of success is. Israel has done a good job of making sure that October 7th, which is basically destroying the tunnels, most of the military might. But if our definition of success is every last Hamas fighter is gone from Gaza, the Gaza Strip, I think we're all going to be here, 2 years from now. By the way, I've said this again publicly, this is not how we define success with Hezbollah or the Houthis or even in Iran. So my view of this is, Israel, the chances of Hamas, by the way, October 7th should never have happened in the first place. I think we all know. This wasn't a magnificent surprise. This wasn't the Yom Kippur War. Okay, this was a situation that should never have happened. I think everyone understands it should never have happened. That said, I think it's very important for people to understand that the success of what defines success in Gaza needs to be defined by the fact that October 7th will never happen again.
Ambassador Tom Nides, thank you for your wisdom and insight, and I hope our paths will cross again soon here.
Me too. Thank you very much.